Hey, and this is Ken Kraetzer for CaMMVets Media. We cover cadets, midshipmen, the military veterans, and Iona University basketball. And glad to do another segment with our friend, an Iona graduate, class of '80, member of the Iona Athletic Hall of Fame, former Boston Celtic draft pick, and AAU coach, and ESPN analyst, and that is Kevin Hamilton. Kevin, how are you today?
Well, very good to see you, Ken.
Great, good to see you. And Iona had a mixed weekend. They played up in Siena before Big Crowd Friday night. Had a really disappointing second half, and then went and came back on Sunday with a big win. What was your impression of Iona's weekend, starting with the game up at Siena?
So I thought the weekend certainly was with mixed reviews. However, um, the way the weekend finished suggested to me that even that loss at Siena, um, they could walk away with some positive thoughts about how to improve and how to be prepared to play those types of games. So I was happy to see how they recovered particularly in the second half against Quinnipiac, because that suggested to me and to anyone who watched that they're not quitters and they're willing to do whatever it takes and fight to get back into these contests from now on. They did not do that against Siena, but I'm certain that when they got back, there was a lot of discussion around not quitting, playing through it, and you never know what can happen. And that's exactly what happened against Quinnipiac.
Quinnipiac, yeah, 78-72. They were down 17 points at the half. Quinnipiac came out with a tremendous amount of energy. They obviously wanted to get ahead on the road, and they did. And But Iona, I noticed the team before they came out for the second half. They all sort of waited in just the area before the entranceway to the court, and seemed to have a huddle and talking to. And they came out, with full energy in the second half. Walter Clayton made a couple of big shots right away, and Nelly Jr. Joseph did something that Coach Pitino had been talking about, hoping he would do more, is when he gets trapped under the basket to kick out to one of the guards on the perimeter, both of whom made shots. And then Anton Bookshire made 3 shots in a row for 7 points. And all of a sudden, the Gaels were up ahead in that game and held on at the end. Yeah, they showed leadership. They showed poise and pulled off the come from behind win in front of a big crowd at Heinz.
Yeah, so I thought the second half was a tale of two stories. The first story being Iona certainly came out much more energized, much more focused, eliminated many of their turnovers, but more importantly, contributions off the bench and off of a player, Walter Clayton, that didn't play much in the first half, really was significant. I also got to tell you, I was very, very impressed with Coach Pitino throughout the entire contest. Even when they were down very big, he seemed to be much more in control and relaxed. I almost had the feeling that he felt like it was just a matter of time before his guys, got back into the contest. So kudos to him. And then, without us being in the locker room at halftime, you don't know what was said, but he brought that calmness back out on the court with his players, and they certainly responded for Coach Pitino. So really solid coaching job, really good respect for the players to come out and play the way they did. The second tale, however, was I thought Quinnipiac absolutely just didn't play well in the second half. Even if they would have played decent, there's no way they should have lost that game. But they actually came out and played horrible. They had 7 turnovers in the first 8 minutes of the second half. And, I was doing a broadcast and I remarked, I said, they're in some trouble. When they turned the ball over the first 4 possessions, they had it in the second half. I said they are in trouble because Iona is playing at a level right now that will get them back in the game. And I think we were all happy to see that that's exactly what happened.
Yeah, Coach Pitino in the post game talked about. He said in the locker room he was very calm with the players, and he said, you win a game like this one possession at a time, and that's what Iona did. And I thought Ashima had some moments. He tried taking some outside shots, wasn't landing them, but he had a big jam, and he had 4 blocks in the game, and really showed energy and leadership out on the court.
He's so critical to their success, more than most people will give him credit for. He did a very, very good job protecting the paint and really helping Nelly be able to explore inside offensively much, much more. Him not making the shots wasn't the big story. The big story was him taking the shots, because when Nelly was in there by himself, Quinnipiac centers were way off of him, daring him to shoot the ball, which made him a non-factor from the perimeter. So Osborne, Shima did a great job turning the tide, forcing them to have to come out and opening the paint a little bit for Nelly.
Yeah, yeah, and I thought there was a drive early in the second half by Walter Clayton. He may have gotten a turnover, and then he went 3/4 of the length of the court in for a drive for a layup right between a couple of Quinnipiac defenders, and he looked like he's back at 100%. Now we talked to him about the game, and he said, "Yeah, you get bumps and bruises, but he's back." And Iona is such a different team with Walter Clayton now is at full speed.
Yeah, no doubt. Walter, I really love how he plays. I love the energy he plays with. And I had a chance to talk to him before the game. I actually said to him, "Hey, listen, keep your head up, keep playing well. The team really needs you." He goes, "Oh, don't worry, coach. We're going to turn this thing around." So his positive attitude, his willingness to do whatever it takes to help the team win. It was his 2 threes and long two to in early part of the second half that really vaulted them to go on a nice run. And then the 2 drives to the basket where he absolutely got hammered was, so critical to show the toughness that he brings to that team. And then lastly, and I said this on the air, the guy's shooting 99% from the free throw line. I mean, what more dangerous person to have on your team than someone is going to make every free throw? So Walter is so important to this team, and I hope he continues to do all the things he does to be the player he is.
Yeah, certainly at the end, as a player, you want to have the ball when the opponent is going to foul. And so one other thing that was interesting, one thing I want to comment on first is we saw Quinn Zielinski out on the court. He's got a brace on his knee or a cast after apparent surgery, which Coach Pitino was mentioning. And it was good to see him back, but it's unfortunate he's now out for the season. And we're hoping he comes back next year. Coach Pitino said he has another year of eligibility left.
Yeah, I feel bad for the young man because he is another important part of that team. But now he's going to have to take on a different role with leadership off the court that I'm certain he will be able to step up to the challenge. And this goes back to many, many other discussions that we had when I said to you, I thought it was going to be important for coach to figure out the rotation, the bench, and the chemistry issues. And I think, that's work in progress, but certainly I give Coach Pitino a ton of credit for doing what he did in that last contest to give his players the confidence to know that they could come back from 18 points down.
Yeah, absolutely. Now, this weekend we see a new team to the MAC, Mount St. Mary from Maryland, right near Gettysburg, actually. Actually, I know their president, Tim Trainer, was formerly the dean at West Point, Brigadier General Tim Trainer, great guy.
Mm-hmm.
And he's been down there a number of years now. And Mount St. Mary moving up in basketball, they've had success under Doug Engelson, and they're 7-15 on the year, 3-8 so far in the MAC. What do you expect from Mount St. Mary's on Friday night?
Well, Coach Ingolstadt is a friend of mine who I have a ton of respect for, and they're not foreign to success. You know, they've made the NCAA tournament a couple of times in the past 5 years, and he does a very good job. He's a player's coach. His players love playing for him. The MAC experience this year is a little bit different for him because it's a different style of basketball than what he's been used to. But I'll tell you what, if I was Iona, I wouldn't be fooled with their record because I think they can see that any team can come in and give them problems. Mount St. Mary's has a number of players that can really play. It's just going to be a matter of them putting it together. They're a relatively young team as well, so look for them to retool going into next year. But Coach Ingolstadt, he's a pro. He's really good at what he does, and he'll come in with some kind of game plan, to throw Iona off.
Everybody's your friend, Kevin. You know everybody.
Yeah, I know a lot of people.
Absolutely. And Sunday, Iona will make its first visit up to Fairfield's new basketball facility. Looking forward to seeing that. And Coach Jay Young's team. Iona defeated Fairfield January 13th, 75-69.
It was a
And
tough Iona the last time out.
yeah, I'm interested to see how if Fairfield regains that strong home court edge they were known for when they used to play in their old gym before they went to the arena down in Bridgeport. They would pack that old gym, and it was a very big home court advantage for them. But what do you expect from Fairfield on Sunday?
Well, Fairfield got a little taste of what it's like to take Iona down to the wire. So they're not going to be intimidated. And I suspect that they'll play a very good game. Students on campus, that arena will be sold out. And by the way, you're right. That used to be a great home court advantage for them. I'll never forget after we beat Louisville in the Garden, our last regular season game was at Fairfield in that little gym, that little hot gym with the stands that, used to go all the way up to the ceiling. And they gave us a tough time. We prevailed ultimately, but I'm happy to see that they're going to have an on-campus arena that gives them that benefit as well. Now, when it comes to Iona, though, I think Iona learned in the first game that they're going to have to play. They're going to have to throw the ball inside, and when doubled, the guys that normally hit shots on the perimeter are going to have to do that. So I look forward to be a good contest.
Yeah. So I kind of look at that second half against Quinnipiac could be a turning point for Iona's season in a positive direction. But this weekend, if they can play to form, it can put them move them ahead in the standings. Because you really want to be first or second in the MAC conference to avoid the play-in round, and they had dropped to third. So a couple more wins this weekend would help in that that opportunity to finish first or second in the conference.
Well, that's a good thought to look ahead like that. But I got to tell you, if I'm them, they better take it one game at a time.
Sure.
Ryder's going to be tough. Sienna's going to be tough. Fairfield's going to be tough. I mean, even Maris will come in with a different type of energy because they've been playing better since Iona put a beating on them. So they're going to really have to take it one game at a time. And the league is so compact now at the top that any of those teams could finish 1 through 4. So I hope the Gaels can prevail and get to the top of the heap.
Yeah. Hey, one other question for you. Coach Pitino said something interesting. He said, well, everything he says is interesting. He's very thoughtful in the post games about recruiting, and he talked about the Siena game where he felt Siena had an older team than Iona did from bringing players in the transfer portal, and that he said he made a mistake in emphasizing true freshmen bringing in. He said he's brought in some players that are going to be very good, and Cruz Davis and Sunday Silas, others that are going to be good. But he said in the future, it's going to be about the transfer portal and getting older players in across the board. And What did you think about that point from Coach Pitino?
Well, that's the way of college basketball now. It's so easy for good players to move around to places that they feel more comfortable in. Um, I'm not surprised that he's going to go that route because to be as competitive as he wants to be every year, that's the easy way to do it. But I also think it's important to have some organic growth. Cruz Davis is as good as a lot of players you can get in the transfer portal. I think Silas Sunday is going to be a fantastic player, and given more time, I think he'll be someone that will be rewarding for Iona to grow internally. And there's a lot of good players out there that can play from day one. But the last thing I would say is you can live by the transfer portal and you can die by the transfer portal. So I would just say that if that becomes the way it is, players can come and can go. So don't think for a second that there aren't colleges out there looking at Iona's roster saying, I'd like to have that kid. So organic growth, I think sometimes is probably a healthier way to sustain a program.
Oh, no doubt. I mean, I think it's going to be a mixture. Do you see the transfer portal rules staying the way they are now? It's pretty wide open. It was kind of something brought on, part of by the COVID year and some of the changes in the NCAA, some of the court rulings. But a lot of people are concerned about the education that the education getting a degree is now kind of a second thought. Do you see any changes? Would you have recommendations on the transfer portal going forward?
So that's a great question. I'm not sure what's going to happen. I do have recommendations, and actually, a former high school teammate of mine is probably the second or third in command at the NCAA, and we've talked a little bit about it. And I think it's a real challenge for the NCAA because now with NIL, the transfer portal is such a dynamic way for a lot of colleges and universities to conduct their business. I think the NCAA has created a monster that they may not be able to go back on. I mean, how can you give that benefit to some student athletes for a few years and then cut it off for the incoming? I think that's going to be a real challenge. I wish, though, that there were some way to keep some level of loyalty to those who transfer to the current school they transfer to. I think it's too easy for a player to up and leave, for whatever the reason is, whether it's they want an NIL deal or they're not happy with the coach or whatever. They want a better climate. Who knows? But it's a tough situation, and college basketball is very, very different. I mean, could you imagine back, way back when I played and Rulin and Vickers and all of my teammates, how many teams would have been recruiting us after every game to come, leave and see if the grass was greener? I don't think that's a healthy way for college basketball to sustain itself.
Yeah, that's there's so many areas of concern because at the end of the day, you want to see players get a degree, and there have been concerns about players who go into the transfer portal and don't come out landing anywhere, as many as 40%. And then there's also concerns about, and I don't know if this has happened, about a player transferring mid-season, playing for one school in November and playing for somebody else in January. And I don't know if that's happened much, but it's been mentioned. But it is good for players to have some alternatives.
Yeah.
But I always say it's all, you want to see these players come away with a degree because most of them, as you talk to some of the 30-year-old players, they say, boy, their elbows and knees are hurting pretty bad and they're looking to retire.
That's right.
You know?
Well, one last thought on that would be in the old days, you had what we called 5 to play 4. You had 5 years to finish your college career, whether that's through injury, transfer, whatever it might be. And nowadays, you have up to 7 years if you do it right. And that's just really not a healthy way to keep college basketball growing organically.
Yeah, yeah, it's so different, but but it's important to always think about graduation and life after basketball,
I agree.
and seeing the players find professions and opportunities for themselves after they may have a chance to play some number of years of pro,
Yep,
but then it's their livelihood thereafter, and want to see them be successful. Hey,
I agree.
Kevin Hamilton, thank you so much. ESPN broadcaster, Iona alumnus, and a good friend of ours. Great to see you, and we'll enjoy watching Iona's two games on home game against Mount St. Mary on Friday, and then the trip up to Fairfield on Sunday.
Sounds good. We'll talk again soon. All the best.
Thank you, Kevin. Good to see you. And that's Ken Kraetzer for CaMMVets Media. We cover cadets, midshipmen, the military veterans, and Iona University basketball. And so watch the games this weekend, and thank you for watching.